Blair Best. It's Tuesday here on The Story. And tonight, President Trump's top trade rep thrown to the wolves of the Senate Finance Committee in D.C. today to try and defend the president's tariff strategy. Plus, Oregon's public defense crisis is not getting much better. A look at possible solutions and a cautionary tale to our south in Marion County. But first, in Washington County, the sewer agency there is in the spotlight following reports of lavish Hawaiian retreats on the taxpayers' dime. It's our big story tonight. But before we get to that, we're turning to breaking news out of Cornelius in Washington County, where 4 people are dead. Right now, all we know that includes 3 minors and 1 adult. Catherine Cook is live at the scene tonight, where a police press conference just wrapped up moments ago. So Catherine, tell us, what have you learned?
Blair, a very difficult situation out here this evening. We are in Cornelius on the corner of North Davis Street and North 15th Avenue. The focus of the investigation is on the yellow house back there. We're told by Washington County Sheriff's officials that this afternoon someone discovered those 4 bodies in an outbuilding connected to that yellow house. We're told it was an adult female and 3 children under the age of 13. Investigators haven't shared whether or not those people who were found dead are related. They're still working on piecing together details, but what they have said is nobody is, they're not looking for a suspect, I should say. There are no outstanding people they're trying to find connected to this case. They have not shared how the people died at this case. In this case, they are investigating, of course, but certainly they have also shared how very difficult this has been on law enforcement as they made the discovery this afternoon. They are not disclosing who showed up to the outbuilding to discover the bodies, but again, 3 children under the age of 13 dead and 1 adult female dead. Blair, back to you.
Okay, Catherine, just heartbreaking. Thank you. Our team will continue to follow this story into the night. You can catch the latest on KGW.com and tonight on the news at 11. Well, now let's get back to the story we talked about at the top regarding clean water services in Washington County.
It's obvious that we've lost public trust. It's incumbent upon us to rebuild this by adhering to the values of openness and transparency.
That was Washington County Commissioner Pam Treese today during a county board meeting. The focus was all about restoring trust between the county's sewer agency and you, its ratepayers.
Whoever would have thought that their water and sewer bill would be the primary topic of conversation when you're chatting with each other in our backyards and in the street visiting?
Good point. Deborah Surotak lives in Washington County and was representing her neighborhood at today's meeting. Now, if you're wondering what this is all about, why a whole community is talking about their wastewater bills, here's a quick refresher. Last month, Oregonian politics editor Jamie Goldberg looked into spending by Washington County's sewer agency, Clean Water Services, after her newsroom got a tip. Through public records, she found that hundreds of thousands in taxpayer money was going towards luxury trips to Hawaii and lunches at restaurants all around town, all while people in the county faced a rate hike. Now, it is worth noting that all of the Washington County commissioners also sit on the sewer agency's board of directors, adding another layer of drama here. But that brings us to today's meeting. In the wake of the Oregonians' investigation, Washington County's Board of Commissioners unanimously passed a resolution ordering Clean Water Services to hire an independent auditor to look at their spending and review policies around travel. So why not have the county auditor poke around the agency? She can't. The Washington County Charter currently does not allow it because, according to the Oregonian, Clean Water Services is considered an independent special district, not a county agency. Here's a look inside that meeting this morning.
All those in favor of taking action on this matter, please vote by raising your hand or saying aye. Aye. Thank you, directors. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously, 5-0.
This wasn't about blame, it's about being better stewards of public trust. Ratepayers deserve a system that's not just forward-thinking, but also financially sound and transparent. The people put in the bill should never be the last to know what's happening.
Is that there is definitely some opportunity to, I think, improve the financial practices and spending patterns in the organization.
Efficient and appropriate use of taxpayer dollars is absolutely critical, and we collectively, as a board, have not provided all of the necessary oversight. That is going to be changing.
The resolution that passed today includes these main points, several of them. First, the county directs Clean Water Services to hire an outside auditor to examine the agency's travel and meal expenditures over the last 3 fiscal years, review and restrict expenses by the agency's management team, revise the travel policy by May 1st, have the agency's Hawaii-based insurance company reviewed by a third-party consultant, develop written guidelines for employees on what is considered allowable travel and training. Those findings must be reported back by June 30th. And lastly, review the meal and refreshment policy by the end of June. Clean Water Services will have to train all its employees to be in compliance with these changes by August 1st. The resolution also states, absent an emergency, all local meal purchases by executive management team members are not reimbursable by Clean Water Services, and all executive management are being asked to return their purchasing cards. The Clean Water Services executives were at today's board meeting, and they didn't say a word. I even went up to the CEO asking if she wanted to comment, and she said not at this time. But I did talk with some community members about how they thought today went.
I am in favor of the county having an independent audit of Clean Water Services. I'm pleased with the first step, which I consider that a first step.
That just seemed to be lackadaisically rubber stamped. Really has no meaning in as far as restoring the trust in the ratepayers, because there are too many obvious flaws in it. It was an insult to injury. I thought there was no ownership other than their goal of rebuilding the public's trust, which would only benefit them. It was all very self-serving.
Now, Deborah was there today representing her Garden Home neighborhood. She says some of her neighbors pay Clean Water Services $500 to $900 every 2 months. Now, one piece of this resolution that she takes issue with is that the outside auditor hired to look into Clean Water Services will be both hired and managed by Clean Water Services executives.
That's like the fox guarding the hen house.
Now, there is no deadline for when the audit must be finished. The resolution just says as soon as, quote, reasonably practical. I would venture to guess Washington County residents would agree. The sooner the better, and we'll be watching. Well, now it's your turn to weigh in. If you pay a Clean Water Services bill, what is going through your mind right now? Email us at thestory@kgw.com or call and leave us a voicemail, 503-226-5090. Now, over the past several months, we've been covering the crisis in Oregon's public defense system. Right now, around 4,000 criminal defendants are without representation. Many of those cases are on hold, with defendants back out in our communities because there are no public defenders available to take their cases. Right now, Oregon lawmakers are trying to sort through mountains of testimony in order to craft a few bills that could help solve the problem. And they're also frustrated because they feel like they've dumped money into public defense without seeing results. In 2023, they invested about $100 million into the state's public defense system, and the crisis has only gotten worse since then. But tonight we're circling back to where our reporting began on this issue, with the nonprofit public defense firms. Recently, a group called Public Defenders of Oregon, which represents the nonprofits, put out their solutions-based action plan for fixing both the unrepresented crisis and the larger range of problems affecting public defense. We spoke with Carl McPherson, Executive Director of Metropolitan Public Defenders, which operates in Washington and Multnomah counties, about what they're proposing.
I mean, I think the short-term goals really are to increase the number of public defenders. The full-time providers, which are nonprofits and consortia, which do the overwhelming majority of the work in the state, there just aren't enough of us. We are the most cost-efficient models, the full-time providers by far. And, the nonprofits are the ones who are recruiting and bringing people in overwhelmingly to the state. to be the new generation of public defenders. I think there should be support for manageable caseloads. I know that's a controversial topic and a lot of people have strong opinions about it. But when your data shows that through surveys of people who leave public defense, the number one reason they leave are high caseloads, then you need to engage in those conversations and try to create policies and procedures that help alleviate and reduce that level of attrition due to high caseloads.
Another proposal are bi-weekly meetings at the county level between state officials, prosecutors, and public defenders. It would be an opportunity for all parties to collaborate and work out some of the local level issues. That could be a big improvement in counties like Multnomah, where communication and cooperation seem to be, let's call it, lacking. A lot of the nonprofit proposals are for ways to cut down the time these criminal court cases take by making sure cases are either dismissed early if they can't move forward, or that the state's evidence is shared with them in a reasonable time if the case can move forward. Public defenders might actually have some crossover here with prosecutors because both sides have argued for very different reasons that judges should have more authority to move things along. Something like that may require the legislature to step in. There's more to this solutions plan that you can read about right now on our website, kgw.com. But we're not done with the nonprofit public defenders just yet. So far, we've mostly focused on Multnomah County. And hey, for good reason. It has the single biggest source of unrepresented defendants in Oregon. But another major crisis county, as the state calls it, is Marion County. And it might be a cautionary tale, showing that as bad as things are in Multnomah County, it can get a lot worse. Judges in Marion County recently decided that if a public defender says they have a full caseload and can't take any more cases, a judge can force them to take more cases anyway. And that's not the kind of judicial discretion that many of the nonprofit public defenders are advocating for. Shannon Wilson is the executive director of the firm Public Defender of Marion County. They've been trying to rebuild since the last time judges began doing these forced appointments back in 2023.
We had been doing weekly workload analysis and providing that information to the court for a while. And it was quite surprising when we learned that the court was not going to accept those representations from our office any longer, that the court was just going to say, that's not our problem. Our duty is to just put a attorney's name on this case, and we fulfilled our obligations. It was quite the event, you can imagine. There was a lot of anxiety and just a lot of disappointment in our office that the court was choosing to approach the situation like this. So, because we have a duty to protect our clients, we had to voice our objection on the record, and we did so, and they would appoint us above our objection.
Now, Wilson says they tried to fight the forced appointments, taking one of the cases all the way to the Oregon Supreme Court. And even though they eventually succeeded in getting their criminal case against their client dismissed, because get this, the prosecution wasn't ready for trial, they never got a ruling on forced appointments. Public Defenders of Marion County was already without a lot of experienced attorneys, but as you might imagine, having cases forced on them hollowed the firm out.
Within that first 11 months, we lost 13 attorneys, and we're relatively, I would say, small to mid-sized firm of about 20 case-carrying attorneys. And so it was about 60% of our attorney workforce left within an 11-month period. It completely destabilized our office.
But that wasn't the only staffing blow. In 2023, the state kickstarted its trial division, hiring public defenders to work as state employees. Now, those jobs offer higher pay and lower caseloads, and the nonprofits can't compete. So the Marion County firm lost 5 more attorneys to the state, whose office happened to be just upstairs from Wilson and the last few members of their team.
I feel like it is a miracle that our office is still in existence at all. Losing that many attorneys, we've lost 80% of our attorneys since the beginning of this contract.
For a while, the judges in Marion County halted forced appointments, and that did give Wilson some time to rebuild with brand new attorneys, most of them straight out of law school. But Wilson says more of those forced appointments are, quote, looming. The presiding judge told them she would try to notify them before it happens. Wilson expects it will be sometime this month. But when it comes to what the legislature and state officials can do to keep public defenders in the game, Wilson said that ethical caseloads are the key to attracting attorneys, keeping them, and ensuring that they're able to fight for their clients.
That means just really holding the line and saying, you get to practice law here, you get to be an attorney. You don't just have to show up, shuffle papers, and push someone through the system. And I know that there's legislation right now to be considered that would essentially remove national and regional best practice standards from public defense. So if the legislature does choose to do that, I think we're accepting the reality that there was evidence that showed a way out from this crisis. And it would send a message to the public defenders that we are aware of what the evidence shows. We're aware of what you are saying the issue is. We're aware of what the data says. And we're aware of what you actually need to do as an attorney. And we don't care. That would be devastating to send that message to public defenders, to send that message to Oregonians that the right to counsel, a constitutional right, is just something we're going to cut corners on.
Now, this public defender saga continues, and we're keeping an eye on anything the legislature might come up with. But we would love to hear your thoughts. Do you think judges should force cases on public defenders? Is there another solution that comes to mind? Let us know. Email the story at kgw.com or call and leave a voicemail 503-226-5090. Or as always, hit us up on social media. Well, still ahead on the story, senators from the Northwest are taking out their frustration with tariffs on President Trump's trade war.
Now you're coming here telling me that tariff is the tool, and I'm telling you innovation is the tool.
What is the plan?
What they're doing to try and stop the tariffs and how another round of them tonight could escalate tensions between the U.S. and China. That's when the story returns. Wall Street's losing streak continued today as the Dow closed the day down more than 300 points. The market started strong after gains in the Asian and European exchanges, but that eventually gave way to a sharp sell-off this afternoon. U.S. markets have fallen sharply since President Trump announced last week he would impose sweeping tariffs on a wide range of U.S. trading partners. As markets swing up and down by the hour and fears of a recession fly, the guy assigned to juggle all of it spent hours today getting an earful from members of Congress on both sides of the aisle, including 2 Northwest senators. The Trump administration's top trade representative, Jamieson Greer, tried to defend the president's tariffs to members of the Senate Finance Committee. Several Republicans say they're on board with the tariffs. They think it'll renew manufacturing in the U.S. Democrats, like Oregon Senator Ron Wyden, are wondering when it'll be over.
What is the plan? In the last week, the White House has been all over the map when it comes to this question. There is no clear message of how the tariffs were determined, what they're supposed to accomplish, how long they'll be in place, whether they're a negotiating tool or a move to try and cut the United States off from global trade and usher in a new era of 1870s style protectionism.
Washington's Democratic Senator Maria Cantwell also went off, saying tariffs are the wrong way to help America's economy.
I'm for trade. I represent trade. I represent a trade economy. I represent the success of what innovation and trade get you. But you're coming here this morning with this not only tanking of the market and 401s, now you're coming here telling me that tariff is the tool. And I'm telling you innovation is the tool. You're telling us in your testimony you want a tariff on semiconductors. I'm saying that the last administration and this organization here passed the Chips and Science Act so we could reshore semiconductors here in the United States. So you're not going to win the innovation economy by tariffing semiconductors and reshoring that. I don't know what you think. I'm not trying to get the semiconductor. I want to lead on next generation semiconductor manufacturing because I'm pretty sure I'm sitting next to the Intel ranking member here who's going to tell me if we don't lead on semiconductor manufacturing and semiconductor next generation technology, then we're not going to be leading in defense or in AI or in anything. So I want to innovate my way to that future, and I want to use the alliance power of different countries to force China and other people to follow us instead of this berating of the American consumer who has to pay the price for this policy.
Greer says when it comes to tariffs, the responsibility is on other countries, whether they decide to retaliate or negotiate. Senator Wyden wasn't having it.
Foreign countries have already retaliated against our farmers and ranchers and small businesses. How can you commit that negotiations are not just going to stop bleeding, but are actually going to open up markets that the Trump tariffs have closed off?
So, Senator, we've already had many countries, many of our markets, explain that they are not going to retaliate against the United States. And in fact, Vietnam, for example, they've lowered their tariffs already on cherries. They've lowered them on almonds and apples, things I know are important to the Pacific Northwest. And this is exactly the right direction that we want to go in. I look forward to hearing from you what other kind of market access you want as we enter into these negotiations.
What's the status of China? As you know, that's a big market for us in the Pacific Northwest. What's the status of discussions there? I don't see much progress. What I see is it looks like it's going to escalate and escalate some more and hurt our consumers and our small businesses in our part of the world.
Well, Senator, unfortunately, China for many years seems to be choosing its own path on market access. Again, they have agency in this. They elected to announce retaliation. Other countries did not. Other countries signaled that they'd like to find a path forward on reciprocity. China has not said that.
And this budding trade war with China appears to only be getting worse. Another round of the president's tariffs are set to take effect after midnight tonight, including a massive 104% levy on Chinese imports. Greer says that about 50 countries have approached the U.S. ready to negotiate, and that decisions will be made on a country-by-country basis. So, what is Congress doing about the tariffs? Senator Wyden, along with 5 Democratic and 1 Republican senator, introduced a resolution resolution today that would repeal the tariffs. Whether or not that even gets a vote in the Senate is unclear. Last week, Senator Cantwell and Republican Senator Chuck Grassley introduced legislation that would require presidents to justify new tariffs to Congress. President Trump already indicated he would veto that idea if it even arrived to his desk, though it's widely expected to not even get a vote in the first place. Stick with us. We're back right after this. A quick update on that breaking news we brought you at the top of the show. A tragic story where a woman and 3 children under the age of 13 were found dead in an outbuilding near a Cornelius home this afternoon. The Washington County Sheriff's Office is asking anyone with information to call that number on your screen. It's 503-846-2500. We'll have updates throughout the night on KGW.com and again on KGW News at 11. That tip line phone number, one more time, is 503-846-2500. And that is the end of our show, folks. Thanks so much for watching. And don't forget, everyone has a story to tell. If you ever miss an episode of The Story at 6:30, we re-air the episode at 8:30 and 10:30 p.m. on our TV app, KGW+. It will also be there in the next day at 11:30 a.m. And you can download that free KGW+ app right now. It's available on Roku, Apple TV, and Fire TV. In the meantime, enjoy your Tuesday night, and I'll see you right back here tomorrow night at 6:30.